Let's play some damn shit!
Let's talk next to Daniel,
From China!
who says that suffering is not an argument against God. Daniel, you're on the line with Forrest and Justin. How are you doing today?
Street whore. I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about my future upcoming chess opponent.
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for
You
having me
suck
on.
my dick, bitch. Suck my slut!
Both of you for a while, but
Suck my...
tonight
suck,
I wanted to focus in on something that Justin had said.
Suck
I think it
my
was at the
slut.
very first call, maybe
Suck my
towards the
slut.
end, where he was talking about, you know, there's evil in the world, there's suffering in the world. And if I was understanding him correctly, he was saying that, you know, this
Spin.
proves that God does not exist. God does not exist because there's suffering in the world. Did I understand you correctly on that?
Not really, no. I think unnecessary suffering is the right way to say it. I think theoretically you can make a case that there is some level of necessary suffering, but the reality is, like, babies being born with bone cancer couldn't be necessary suffering. Tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, those certainly wouldn't be classified as necessary suffering. And I'm working on the assumption that you think that unnecessary suffering is bad. I could be wrong. Do you agree with me that unnecessary suffering is bad?
Yes, and I think that you actually mentioned some of those things during that call. I would say, from a Christian perspective, I would think that unnecessary suffering, like from our perspective, it may not be necessary because we don't understand the reason for it. But I would say that ultimately all suffering has some purpose.
Oh. So then we have no motivation to prevent suffering here on the earth then.
Hey, Jim, this is Chris. Do you have Bible study tonight? Please give me a call back at 522-915. Thank you.
No, it's necessary now. If the unnecessary suffering is God using it to bring about some greater good, then we shouldn't be stopping it.
No, we're actually told to in the Bible, like we're told.
Don't even think about it,
slut.
Shut up!
Which
okay. So there is some suffering we should prevent, huh?
Suck my dick, bitch.
Right. Well, we
now buck up and take that poem.
And how do we know which ones are good and which ones are bad?
Well, we don't. From our perspective, you know, all suffering is people.
Okay, so we just gotta guess, right?
So we can't say what the plan is behind it. All we see is what we.
I'm getting in your business. I'm getting in your business.
Well, then how do we know who to help?
I would say help everybody that you can when you're able to.
But you might be doing the wrong thing, right? God might be making this person suffer because they need this person to suffer to bring about some greater good, and us helping them is going to prevent that from happening.
God damn it!
Right. So, and to clarify, I am one of those who believes that
God
is
fucking
sovereign
damn it!
And that everything that happens at His own ordaining.
God damn it!
But
Are you
from the human perspective, I would say that my duty is to do what I'm commanded to do.
Are you a Calvinist?
Leave the rest to Him.
God damn it!
What?
A Calvinist.
God fucking damn it!
Are you a... There you go. That
God
checks
damn
out.
it! Suck my dick.
So then, what that means then is you think that the Haitian earthquake was necessary, huh? It killed 200,000 people in 2010?
Suck my dick.
You said you are a Calvinist? I just want to make up. I didn't hear that. You said yes?
Suck my
Okay, I'm sorry.
motherfucking
Please
dick.
continue.
You
I
suck
didn't
my
interrupt.
dick,
That's
bitch.
going to frame how you answer that question in my head.
Yeah, was the Haitian earthquake good?
Yeah.
I would say that God is the one who.
I just called, but no, but I left a message.
I can't say, but I would say that He was definitely behind it, and since God is all.
But was it necessary?
Christ. Fucking.
But was it necessary?
I would say.
This is boring.
God
This
has
is
His reasons for doing everything that He does.
Necessary for what?
Well,
Dick, bitch.
fucking Jesus.
Now fuck up and meet this bishop right here.
I'm sorry. You were both talking. I think.
What was the earthquake necessary for?
That's not a question I can answer. I don't know God's mind.
Well, it's kind of important for the argument, right? If your argument is that the earthquake was necessary, and ask you what is it necessary for, I need some kind of an answer.
I can't get past that. That is a wild claim. That God's up there just like, here's the Holocaust. You guys clean up the mess. That's just what this dude does. He just knocks over bricks and slaughters. He just slaughters innocent people in the just scores and scores of people, and lets us clean it up. So just in case we needed to, he might have wanted it to happen. He did want it to happen, but we might need to clean it up. So we should do that. And you worship this fucking thing.
I don't believe he does anything without purpose, but I don't believe that we can know all.
Worship this fucking thing. But we might need to clean it up, so we should do that.
Thing.
And you worship this fucking thing.
I don't believe he does anything without.
Clean it up, so we should do that. And you worship this fucking thing.
I don't believe he does anything without purpose, but I don't believe that we can know all the time what those purposes are.
Is it possible for his purpose to be evil?
No.
So then, just to be clear, you think that shit like the Holocaust was a good thing. It happened on God's watch, God made it happen, and he has a good plan, therefore it was a good thing ultimately.
No, I think that God is good.
From
I think that they're evil, and I think that God allows evil things to happen and brings them about for a better or a greater good.
Like genocide. So the genocide in Gaza, the genocide, like we're talking Congo, talking about Sudan, talking about the Holocaust, talking about Rwanda, talking about Darfur, all these things. When just scores and scores of people are slaughtered in the most horrific ways. That's God doing something good. He's allowing evil
Don't even think about
for good reason. So you think these things are ultimately worth it?
Yeah, I believe God
Stupid!
evil for good.
There it is.
And I think there are biblical examples.
Well, I know there are biblical examples, but here's the problem with it, right? Let me ask you an easy question. Let's say, for example, you don't know why the Haitian earthquake was necessary. You just know that it was, right? Let's say God had a goal. We're going to call that goal number one, right? Is God capable of achieving goal number one without the earthquake?
My motherfucking dick, bitch.
Well, sure, he's omnipotent and he can do what he wants.
There you go. So what that means, if you're capable of achieving your goal without the suffering, and then you use the suffering to achieve your goal, that's unnecessary.
That's one of those works to buy. Don't even think about it.
From his perspective, it was necessary. That was the way he chose to do it.
What?
Nope, that's not how the word necessary means. The word necessary means it can't be any other way. Necessary means this is the only way it could have been done. So if God had other means, he could have done it some other way. What that means is that the suffering is no longer necessary. It's just a decision. And just making a decision to make 200,000 people suffer, more than that actually suffer, when you didn't have to do it, well, that's fucking horrific. It's evil.
Right, but Daniel, Daniel, I think it's Daniel chapter 4, he says, God does as he pleases in the heaven and among the people of the earth. No one can hold him back, or say, what have we done?
What?
Right.
That doesn't affect the argument.
Again, we're right back to the other thing. This is just the argument of might makes right. He's big and strong, and his dick's real large, and therefore he can do anything he wants, no matter how evil, and who are we to question it? That's not how morality works. That's how obedience and tyranny works. And I would expect nothing less from somebody who literally just said the Holocaust was worth it.
Well, I would say that God, being the creator, does have the right to do whatever he wants to do.
And I think that's fucking sick.
It's so
here we are at this impasse.
Yeah, I just want to be clear,
sick.
It does have the right to do whatever he wants to do.
And I think that's fucking sick.
So
here we are at this impasse.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, you're suggesting, as Forrest said, that the moral framework is might makes right. Is that your framework?
Well, my framework is that God is good, and therefore, as creator, everything that he does is good.
That doesn't answer my question. You said that he has the right to do it. because he's powerful, right? So that equates to might makes right. I'm powerful enough to do it, and you can't question me, therefore it's right.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay. So when God said that he's going to have the Babylonian women raped and have their babies' heads smashed against rocks in Isaiah chapter 13, that was like the people who were following the command to do that was doing a good thing.
I would say if God, I would have to look that up, to be honest with you, but I would say that if that's the command that was given, then God would be right to do that because he is good. We are not, and we don't deserve it at all. We don't deserve mercy at all. But the fact that he gives mercy,
that's why religion's dangerous.
I wonder if we can just get to a point where Daniel, where you are as disgusted with yourself as I am with you.
We'll get there.
I was just curious. Can you just say the sentence? I just want to see if you have the stomach to just say it out loud. Sometimes rape is good. And can you just be very clear about that?
Well, yeah, I can be clear about that. Because the view that I take, and this is what I tell a lot of people when they ask questions like that, is that God used the greatest evil ever committed, which was the murder of
Stupid!
So I don't have a problem.
Evil.
He used a lesser evil. Good.
Jesus committed 2 capital offenses. He should have been murdered according to his own laws. But when God says in Jeremiah 19:9 that he's going to cause the Israelites to cannibalize their own children as punishment, cannibalizing the children, I guess, was good?
Yes, he was bringing judgment on them.
Okay, yeah, so what we got so far is that sometimes it's good to rape women. Sometimes it's good to cannibalize children.
Actually says, I create good and evil.
I know, 457, we're aware. So, let me ask you a question. If God told you, Daniel, listen, I'm passing judgment on your neighbors, I'm going to need you to burn their house down, it would be good to obey him?
I wouldn't, because the only way that God speaks is through his word, and he doesn't speak, for example, the way he spoke to Moses.
Oh, God speaks to people directly.
So, tell me personally to do that.
Is it within God's nature to speak to human beings directly?
Directly? Yeah, I mean, he has in the past.
Okay, so there you go. God's nature doesn't change. And it's within God's nature to speak directly to humans, which means he could, if he wanted to, speak directly to you, right?
If he wanted to, but he doesn't.
There you go. So if he did, that's how hypotheticals work. If God spoke to you, that, listen, your neighbors are evil, need to burn down the house, the right thing to do would be to burn down the house, right?
I mean, I understand where you're going with this. To be honest with you, as a human being, I don't know if I could.
I didn't ask you if you would. I said, would it be right to do it? I didn't ask you if you would
catch his bishop.
No, because I think it would be violating the commands he's given us. But, let's say I would have been a time when he was still speaking, then yes.
There's not a single command in the Bible that this would violate. In fact, God commands the killing of men, women, and children routinely. In fact, we already covered in Jeremiah 19:9, he says that he's going to cause people to cannibalize their own children. So, is it within God's nature to ask you to murder a family inside of their home?
Anytime God brought judgment, he didn't just send people into their homes. It was always a corporate judgment. So I don't think so.
And again, he's wrong, because he commands the murdering of an entire family. Just a specific family in the book of Numbers. So we'll try this again. Is it within God's nature? I'm not asking you, did he ever do it? I'm asking you, is it in God's nature that he could tell you to burn down your neighbor's house for judgment?
Potentially, yes.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Now, if he did that, because it is a potential within his nature, would it be right to obey?
No, yeah, the right thing to do would be to obey him.
There you go. The right thing to do would be to burn down the house. Now, if prior to burning down the house, he said, listen, they have to suffer more than just being burnt in the house. I want you to take the baby out of the house and, put them through a meat grinder. that'd still be the right thing to do, huh?
Yes, and I don't believe that would be consistent.
Yeah, would be the right thing to do. Yeah. So just to be clear, if God told you to go turn your neighbor's baby into Krabby Patties, that would be the right thing to do. Listen, I'm sold. What a great guy. What a loving religion of peace and love. I'll see you next Sunday, folks.
I have a fun question that I just want to ask Daniel here. Daniel, we've been engaging with a lot of hypotheticals, and I appreciate that. I want to ask you one more hypothetical, just to see. Interesting. 1 Samuel 15:3. God commands Saul, I believe it was, go and attack the Amalekites, totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, animals and donkeys. So God specifically commands, go kill women, children, babies, every single bit of this culture. Do you have a family, Daniel?
Yeah.
Suck?
Okay, so here's the hypothetical. Magic wand is waved, and poof, magically right now, you, Daniel, your wife, your children, all magically are actually Amalekites. You poof back thousands of years ago, and you are now citizens of Amalek. And you're exactly the same as you are right now, just in that time period.
Don't even think about it.
All your thoughts, all your experiences, everything about you, you just exist in this city today. And God gives this command to Saul. Go wipe out that city, destroy everyone there, men, women, children, babies, everybody. Do you help the Israelites kill your family, or do you hide them? Do you protect your family from the army coming to slaughter your children and you, or do you walk out and say, hey y'all, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, He says kill me and my kids are right here, go kill them. What do you do, Daniel?
I'm not sure how that works since the Amalekites didn't believe, but given this scenario that you give, if I were a Christian, then I would do everything that I could to protect my family, but I would also understand that if that happened, it would be judgment, because that was the reason God sent them against it.
So you would fight, so just to be clear, you would fight against the will of God to protect your family.
Well, the Amalekites didn't serve the same God, but yeah, I mean...
No, I'm saying you... Right now, you poof into that city. God didn't say go door to door and ask each Amalekite if they're a Christian. God didn't say check their religion first. He said slaughter everyone and their babies. So I'm asking you, do you follow the will of God and help those Israelites find your children and murder them, or do you protect your family? What do you do?
Obedience to God comes before sacrifice, which is actually what God told Saul when he rejected him and punished him for disobeying the command.
And so the answer is what? Are you obedient to God and help them kill your family, or do you protect your family and disobey God?
In that scenario, I would have to be obedient to God just as the Israelites were.
And protect, so you would have your own family slaughtered, just to make sure that God's commandment was fulfilled.
His judgment on a very wicked people. See, I think there's a couple of things.
I didn't ask what the caveats were, man. What I asked you is, would you help them kill your family? And you as well.
Wait. Say that again. Because you're
I'll say exactly what I just said. I didn't ask for the caveats.
When you set up the scenario, you said that if I was a non-Amalekite, but I was a believer.
Yep. If you exactly as you are right now, were poofed with magic into that civilization, God did not command the Israelites to check the religion of everyone in that city. He said, slaughter every man, woman, child, and baby. That's what he said. So if you were standing in that city, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not, if you were standing in that city at that time, the Israelites would have killed you and your children. So I'm asking you, God said kill everyone in that city. if you, Daniel, were in that city, knowing that that is the will of the God you worship, would you help the Israelites find and kill you and your family, or would you defend yourself and protect your children from harm?
God damn it.
What would you do?
I would probably defend my family, but the scenario doesn't work because all the Amalekites were against God. That's why he punished them.
And so here we are. And so here we are. You would defend your family. You would go against the will of God. God said kill everyone in that city. He didn't say kill all the non-Christians. He said kill everyone in that city. You would go against the will of God and protect your family. And you say all this just a few minutes after you said rape is good sometimes, murder is good sometimes, genocide is good sometimes, bone cancer in children is good sometimes, starvation, slavery, all these horrible things are all good because they're part of God's plan, and conveniently they're happening to other people. But when it comes down to you and your family, you would violate the will of God because, well, he must have made some mistake. Fuck you, Daniel, and fuck the God you worship.
I think there's a distinction between what we see and what God is seeing.
I'd like to kick his ass.
And your family, you would violate the will of God because, well, he must have made some mistake. Fuck you, Daniel, and violate the will of God because, well, he must have made some mistake. Fuck you, Daniel, and fuck the God you worship.
I think there's a distinction between what we see and what God is seeing.
Listen to that motherfucker.
I didn't say it was good. I said it was evil, but I said God uses evil for good.
Yeah,
and when it's evil being visited upon you, you have very different rules.
Amen.
Not at all. My life is suffering as we speak, and we both agree that God has a purpose in it.
God damn.
So you think it's a good thing that she's suffering?
I think that God has a purpose in it. Now, that purpose so far has been to help us to rely and learn to trust Him more.
So it's a good thing that she's suffering?
Ultimately, yeah, suffering can draw closer to God.
So there you go.
Help her to be able to talk to other people who are in that position.
Could God draw you closer to Him without the suffering?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so then it's still not necessary. God's still a vindictive asshole.
Once again.
This is why the argument from unnecessary suffering is so powerful, Daniel. Like I realized, so I was a Christian once. I was a Christian for a long time, right? And I remember when Bart Ehrman had God's Problem? It must have been 15 or 17 years ago. Yeah, but before that book came out, I saw the title of it, I saw the blurb about it, and I thought Bart Ehrman was an idiot. I was still a Christian. I thought he was an idiot. And the reality was, because I never thought through all the intricacies of the suffering arguments. I didn't spend enough time on theodicy. I was the one who was deficient in my thinking. And then finally, long after he published it, I read the book, I was like, oh, fuck, this guy's right. It's really easy to think that suffering's not a problem when you haven't really engaged deeply into the actual arguments. We're only on the surface of the suffering argument, which is typically we're calling it the unnecessary suffering. But like this is a very deep problem, and it's been around for a long time, and it's not going anywhere because it's a good argument.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Ehrman's an idiot. I think that he actually challenges me a lot, along with others that I've read. I mean, even listening to you guys, I'm fairly new to the channel, and your page on Facebook, and I find myself being challenged on a lot of things. Like there's a lot of questions I hear asked that I can't immediately answer, which I think is a good thing. But and I just lost my train of thought there. But when you talk about suffering, because you call it evil, we talk about evil and good. Where do you get evil and good, like from a humanistic perspective?
Well, to me, like my moral framework is like utilitarian, do the least amount of harm. Right? I believe that harm is inherently bad. So, like for example, it's not hard for me. I can look at somebody suffering. I don't have to worry about whether or not that person should suffer to bring about a greater good. No, if I can prevent them from suffering, I will. It's easy. It's very, very black and white for me. But in the God worldview, you don't have that. In God worldview, you have no idea why somebody's suffering. It could be that you're intervening in God's plan if you help them.
For me, it's just anytime if somebody were to say something like rape is good, sometimes I just know that's not a moral person, and that's pretty much all that I need.
Yeah.
Well, no, when you say I would be interfering by helping that person, like I said, I think at the beginning, I believe that everything happens because God ordained it, which would include me helping that person. He would ordain the suffering as well as the means to them receiving hate.
Yeah, I mean, but the fact of the matter is that if it comes down to you're helping them because God ordained it, at that point you're not even an agent. At that point, this conversation is useless. Like, if all you are just predestined, like if every little thing was predestined by God, then Romans chapter 9 is true. There's some of us that God literally created just to be vessels of wrath, which makes them even more fucking evil.
Why would that make them evil?
What do you think the word evil means?
Evil would be, God is good, he's the standard of good, so anything evil would be what is contrary to God.
He's not the standard of good, I disagree with that. Evil is just like a really bad. So, especially in Hebrew, right? So, ra in Hebrew just refers to bad or badness, but it's also how we translate the word evil. So, like, from the biblical worldview, like, evil is just something that's, like, really bad. So, when I say evil, I'm just saying something that's really bad, that's all I'm saying. So, I don't believe that the God of this book is good, because if raping women and murdering babies, and in some passages he says that he's going to have women's wombs ripped open and the babies torn from them. Now, if somebody can command all that and still be good, we don't know what good is anymore. We no longer have a definition of good. If you think good means sometimes you get to rape women, good and bad has lost all of its meaning. It's gone. It's done.
To be clear, I think rape is evil. Again, I'm not saying that it's good. I'm saying
Unless God commands it.
I'm saying that he uses evil for good, and yes, sometimes he commands evil.
Well, you don't know that.
What's the difference? Just out of curiosity, what's the difference between something evil that is done for good and something that is just fucking evil? How do you tell that? Because it sounds like you're just using the words good and evil as just kind of like placeholders, when ultimately the consequence of the action is good, and therefore you still think it's good.
Okay, and that may be on me for not saying it well. When you say evil is really bad, something that's really bad, to me it sounds like you're saying the same thing, and maybe that's just my brain not working. How would you define bad?
God,
if I say how do you define evil, and you just say, well, it's something that's really bad, how do you define bad?
Christ.
I mean, what makes something bad?
Fucking Christ.
Well, good and evil, good and bad are subjective terms. And in fact, they're subjective in your worldview. You might not realize it yet. So good is the thing that's like always preferred. Something bad would be the thing that's not preferred, or something that would have some sort of a negative outcome. So in my worldview, they're subjective. But like in your worldview, you don't know if they're objective. In fact, in your worldview, they're not objective. In fact, you think that your God decides what is good and bad. And if that's the case, they're subjective. They're subject to the mind of God. But why would I conclude that God is good? Like, you're just defining God as good? Why would anyone conclude that?
Okay, so you said two things there. I would say they're not subjective in my worldview. First, they're objective to us because, like you said, God is the one who defines them, but I would say they're not even subjective to God because they proceed from his nature.
That's not what... No. They don't proceed from his nature. God's morals are things he decided. He decided what is moral because you believe that the laws change, which means God can decide that it's good to do the Mosaic law back then, and then later you don't have to do it, right? So if it's good to do it then, and then not good to do it later, then what that means...
Fucking Christ. fucking Christ.
I don't believe Jesus said, and you actually quoted this earlier, I think. Jesus said he did not come to abolish the law, he came to fulfill it. It's not abolished.
Okay, then do you think that we should be stoning virgins that don't bleed on their wedding night?
I believe the law of God is the standard, and should be the standard for society.
Then do you believe that according to Deuteronomy, according to Deuteronomy 22, if a woman doesn't bleed on her wedding night, should she be stoned?
Under a theocratic society, yes. We don't do that in our society because we don't follow his law.
So you
should we? Jesus Christ, dude, should we follow his law?
I just said I believe God's law is and should be the standard in society.
So then the answer to Justin's question is just yes, right?
I'm waiting for a
tap dancey bullshit. Like, it's so, oh my god, dude, it's so fucking difficult.
Gotcha.
Just a straight answer, man.
Now, let me tell you why. First of all, this is horrific, by the way. But second of all, you are aware that the bloody sheet is not a valid test for finding out someone's virginity, right?
Right, and I would say that in our society, we have other ways of telling, so I think that would apply in some way.
But that shit's not in the Bible, is it?
Yeah, not only is it not in the Bible, there is no method. Just to be clear, like, we don't have a method that we can use to test and guarantee somebody is a virgin. Doesn't exist, not even in modern day.
Do they not have kits that they can test to see if somebody has sex, like rape kits and stuff?
Nope. Recently, you can test for stuff recently, but you can't tell if someone has never had sex before. No. There is no actual virginity test. Usually people are just looking for a hymen.
Okay, yeah, I'll grant that.
But they don't, that's not a good reliable method. Hymens break all the time. Some people just don't fucking have them. Sometimes they grow back. And at the end of the day, it is just another person, usually an old man, inspecting the giblets of a young girl to see if she's fuckable by her new forced husband. That's what it almost always boils down to. So this is something in the Bible that says this is a purity, usually an old man, inspecting the giblets of a young girl to see if she's fuckable by her new forced husband. That's what it almost always boils down to. So this is something in the Bible that says this is a purity test for virginity. It isn't accurate, and it's fucking gross. And the result of this is stoning a young girl to death. And you, Daniel, you fucking lunatic, think that it is a good thing and something that should be implemented in our society. And you're sitting here asking where our morality comes from.
So here's the thing, Daniel. About halfway through this call, I had it in my head. I thought, you know what? It seems like you're a decent guy, but the religion is making you say stupid things. The reality is, at this point, I don't think you're a decent individual. I think that if you would advocate for stoning a woman just because she wasn't a virgin on her wedding night, especially on the evidence that's provided in Deuteronomy 22, I think you're a monster. I think you should be checked out. I think someone should look at your head, and we should dedicate you to science at one point after you pass from this life.
I crossed that line when you said that rape is good sometimes.
Yeah.
Before I go on, do you agree with him that morality is subjective? Like, I don't know your individual view.
Yes, I do agree that morality is subjective, and I also think that rape is wrong all the time, and slavery is wrong all the time, and genocide is wrong all the time, and that's why I'm a more moral person than you, Daniel.
Also, do you believe
on what? What makes
I want one more piece of clarification from you. Do you do animal sacrifices?
No.
Why?
Because those, in Hebrews, those were done away with. Christ was the ultimate sacrifice.
So then God's moral law does change.
Oh shit! Look at that Bible existing.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's no division. There's no division in the law. It's just the law. That's it. That's all you get. You'll never find a division in the law. Do you consume shellfish?
Do I what?
Do you consume shellfish?
No, I'm allergic.
Do you follow the laws?
Do you touch the skin of a dead pig, or shave the hair of the sides of your hair and beard, or wear garments of mixed fabrics, or any of the other fucking things?
Yeah,
God commanded to not do, rather than just saying don't do slavery or rape.
I just got myself another
yeah,
pool.
I do some of those things. Yes.
Oh, weird.
Do you think you should do all that? Do you think you should abstain from, I don't know, not eating animals that chew the cud but don't have divided hooves? Do you think all those dietary laws you should follow?
Yes, because those things, there are instances of the law, not all of it, but there are instances of the law that were made obsolete with Christ.
Okay, that means...
You know the Bible. I know the Bible. So
God damn it.
I do know the Bible. Well, then, what that means is that God's perfect law, which is moral,
damn it,
changes in time. That means God is deciding in His mind that they apply here, but not here. They change. That means God is making a decision. If it's dependent on God's mind, then what that means is that it's subjective. And like, I've heard the argument, you want to run away from it coming from God's mind because you want them to be objective, but even if it comes from God's nature, you can't define what that even means. What does it even mean to say that they're part of God's nature? These are two completely distinct ontological categories. It's nonsense.
God fucking Holy Ghost.
It would mean that He didn't just arbitrarily decide these things.
I didn't say anything about arbitrary.
Fucking Christ.
I didn't say anything about arbitrary.
Boom!
The reality is you have subjective morals, I have subjective morals. The difference, yours comes from a God, mine comes from common sense, rationality, and empathy, and yours comes from an angry bronze guy who didn't know how women's bodies work. All right, listen, I'm done with this conversation at this point. I think we've heard enough from Daniel. Daniel, I mean this seriously, Daniel. I really hope you watch this video back and think about what this religion has done to your brain. Because I still think deep down inside, you don't want to hurt people, but you feel like you have to buy into admitting these things. Otherwise, you're being inconsistent in your worldview. And to be sure, you would be inconsistent in your worldview, but your religion is making you double down on crazy, insane commitments. You've bitten way too many fucking bullets. The lead has poisoned your brain at this point.
I'd rather you be fucking morally inconsistent than just fucking morally monstrous, dude.
Well, when you say morally monstrous, you're talking as if there's some objective moral standard that we're supposed to abide by.
Fucking Christ.
I do have... first of all, that's not what we said at all. Also, I do have a superior moral standard than you, and also, I'm not going to sit here and fucking explain morality to somebody who thinks that rape is a good thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Superior according to who?
We're done.
Yeah. We're done all the way off, Daniel. Gross.
You have been told that the foundation of morality is solid rock. You have been told that the rules are absolute, and that they come from a place of perfect, unchangeable order. You grew up hearing that the 10 Commandments were not just suggestions. They were the very character of the divine etched into stone by the finger of God Himself. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. It sounds simple. It sounds beautiful. It sounds like the bedrock of a civilized world. But then, you started reading. You did not just listen to the selected verses in the sermon. You actually opened the book and read the chapters they never preach on Sunday morning. And you felt a crack in the foundation. You saw something that made your stomach turn and your mind race. You saw the lawgiver breaking the law. You saw the architect demolishing the building. You saw the very God who said, "Thou shalt not turn around and say, go and do exactly that." You're not crazy for noticing this. You are not a sinner for asking why the rules apply to you, but apparently do not apply to the entity who wrote them. You are experiencing the same cognitive dissonance that created the most dangerous mind of the 17th century. Today, we are going to walk through the 7 times the biblical text itself shows God shattering the very commandments He gave to Moses. And let me be clear right now, this is not an attack on your faith. This is not an attack on the people who find comfort in these traditions. This is an analysis of the text itself. We are looking at the narrative logic and the historical contradictions that have been preserved in ink for thousands of years. We are going to use the lens of the man who saw this more clearly than anyone else in history. The man who was cursed by his own community. The man who was excommunicated and erased from the book of the living because he dared to point out what was right in front of everyone's eyes. Baruch Spinoza. In 1656, Spinoza realized something that is so simple, it is undeniable once you see it. He realized that if God is infinite and perfect, He cannot act against His own nature. Therefore, if the text says God lied, or God stole, or God commanded destruction, the text must be a reflection of the human imagination and not the ultimate reality of the divine. So sit back. Put aside the apologies and the theological gymnastics you have heard your whole life to excuse these passages. We are going to look at the text, just the text, and we are going to reclaim your right to observe the reality that is staring you in the face. This is not about destroying meaning. It is about validating your sanity. It is about understanding that the confusion you felt was not a lack of understanding, but a surplus of attention. You were paying attention. And today, that attention pays off. Let us begin with the most visual and visceral contradiction of them all. The second commandment. You know this one. It defines the separation between the Creator and the creation. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. The command is explicit. It is absolute. No physical representations, no statues, no idols. The logic is that the divine is beyond form, and to reduce the infinite to a statue is to insult its nature. Israel was to be distinct from the nations around them, specifically because they worshipped an invisible God who could not be captured in bronze or gold or wood. You were told that idolatry was the ultimate sin. The prophets spent centuries mocking the nations who bowed down to wood and stone. They called them foolish for trusting in things made by human hands. And yet, look at what happens in the book of Numbers, chapter 21. The context is panic. The people are dying. There is a plague of fiery serpents moving through the camp. The people are screaming. They are suffering. They cry out for salvation. And what is the command that comes down from the mountain? What is the instruction given by the same voice that said, "Make no graven images"? The Lord said to Moses, "Make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole." Moses makes a serpent of bronze, a statue, a graven image, a metal representation of a creature on the earth. And the people are told to look at this metal idol to be healed. And think about this. This is not a loophole. This is a direct violation of the second commandment, commanded by the author of the second commandment. Imagine you are an Israelite in that camp. You have been told your entire life that making a statue is a capital offense. You have been told that bowing to or looking to an object for power is the way of the heathen. And now, to save your life, you must violate your conscience. You must look at the bronze snake. Spinoza looked at this, and he did not try to excuse it. He did not say it was a mystery. He saw it as proof that the law was not a metaphysical truth about the universe, but a political tool adapted for a specific people at a specific time. Spinoza argued in the Theological Political Treatise that the prophets perceived revelations according to their own imagination and temperament. In this moment, the imagination of the leader required a totem, a physical object to focus the minds of a frightened people. The contradiction is not in God. The contradiction is in the text, because the text is a record of human leadership struggling to control a chaotic situation. They needed a snake, so they made a snake. The law against images was suspended because the utility of the image was suddenly higher than the utility of the prohibition. If you ever sat in a service and watched people bow to objects or icons while reading texts that forbid them and felt a twitch of confusion, you were right. You were seeing the seams in the fabric. You were seeing that the rule against idols is only a rule until the leadership decides they need an idol. And notice later in the Bible, in 2 Kings, that same bronze serpent has to be destroyed by King Hezekiah because the people are worshiping it. The solution commanded by God became the sin punished by God. It is a perfect circle of contradiction. It reveals that the commandment was never about the nature of reality, but about the control of the narrative. Spinoza teaches us that true piety is not about statues or the lack of statues, it is about justice and charity. When the text focuses on bronze snakes, it is focusing on the imagination, not the intellect. Now let us move to the foundation of property and trust, the eighth commandment. Thou shalt not steal. It seems universal. It is the basis of civilization. You cannot take what belongs to another. If you take it, you are a thief. If you take it by force, you are a robber. Yet look at the Exodus narrative carefully, before the plagues even begin. Before the water turns to blood, there is a premeditated plan for mass larceny. In Exodus chapter 3, verse 22, the instruction is given, "Every woman shall ask of her neighbor and of her who sojourns in her house jewels of silver, jewels of gold and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters." And the text concludes with a phrase that is hard to ignore. So you shall plunder the Egyptians. This was not a gift. This was not a trade. This was not a voluntary donation. The text explicitly says that God gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians so that they granted their requests. This was a supernatural manipulation of the victim to facilitate the stripping of their wealth. Imagine the scene. You are told, "Do not steal." But you're also told that before you leave, you must take everything not nailed down by using social pressure and divine influence. This is state-sanctioned looting, commanded by the moral authority. The apologists will tell you this was back pay for slavery. They will tell you it was reparations. And perhaps morally that is a justifiable argument from a human perspective. We can understand why an oppressed people would feel entitled to the wealth of their oppressors. But legalistically, based on the commandment, it is theft. It is taking property through coercion and deception. Spinoza asks us to look at this not as a moral failure of a deity, but as a narrative device of a nationalist history. Every nation writes its history to justify its wealth. The ancient Hebrews were no different. To claim that the creator of the universe, who owns every star and every atom, needed his people to swindle jewelry from their neighbors is to reduce God to a tribal chieftain raiding the next village. Spinoza refused to worship a tribal chieftain. He insisted on a God that was synonymous with nature itself, eternal and self-sufficient. A God who is the substance of all things does not need to plunder. This story of spoiling the Egyptians is a human story. It is a story of revenge and enrichment attributed to the divine to give it legitimacy. If you have ever wondered why so many religious wars involve looting and seizing territory in the name of God, you have your answer here. The precedent was set early. The commandment says, "Do not steal unless you are on the winning side of a holy narrative." Then you can take the gold and silver and clothing and call it the blessing of the Lord. Spinoza saw this and realized that divine command was often just a stamp of approval for human greed. It is startling because it is so clear. The creator of gold does not need to steal gold. Only men need to steal gold. And when men write stories about God, they often write him with the same pockets they have. This leads us directly into something darker, something that touches the very nature of truth. The ninth commandment, "Thou shalt not bear false witness. Do not lie. Do not deceive." We are told that God is truth. It is impossible for God to lie. This is repeated in the New Testament. It is a cornerstone of theology. If God lies, then reality itself creates a vertigo that we cannot survive. We need to believe that the source of reality is honest. And yet, I want you to open your mind to 1 Kings chapter 22. This is one of the most unsettling passages in the entire Hebrew Bible for the concept of absolute divine honesty. The scene is the throne room of heaven. This is not a metaphor. This is the prophet Micaiah describing a vision. God is sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven are standing by him. And the Lord says, "Who will entice Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth-Gilead?" God is asking for volunteers to run a deception operation. He wants a king dead, and he wants to trick him into the battle where he will die. The spirits offer various suggestions, but then a spirit comes forward and says, "I will entice him." And the Lord says, "How?" And the spirit says, "I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets." Pause. Read that again. A spirit proposes to possess the prophets of the king and force them to speak a lie. And what is God's response? Does he say, "No, I am the God of truth. I cannot sanction deception"? Does he say lying is an abomination? No. He says, "You are to entice him, and you shall succeed. Go out and do so." The text creates a hierarchy where God authorizes a lie to achieve a political assassination. The false witness is not just allowed, it is commissioned. It is strategic. Spinoza saw this and realized that the attributes given to God in the Bible, truth, justice, mercy, were often just projections of human ideals that were discarded the moment they became inconvenient for the narrative. If a king needs to die, the prohibition against lying vanishes. This passage terrified the early theologians. They tried to make the lying spirit Satan. They tried to make it an allegory. But the text is stubborn. It says, "The Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these your prophets." God is the active agent of the deception. When you read this, did you feel a cold drop in your stomach? That feeling is the realization that the rules are for you, not for the ruler. It is the realization that in the biblical narrative, power supersedes morality. If you have ever felt that religious institutions are comfortable with pious frauds or lying for the Lord, this is where that DNA comes from. The contradiction is impossible to ignore. The command is, "Do not bear false witness." The action is, "Go and be a lying spirit." The contradiction cannot be resolved. It can only be admitted. Spinoza admits it. He says the Bible is not a philosophy book. It is a book of obedience, and sometimes obedience requires believing a lie. But you and I are looking for truth, not just obedience. We are looking for a consistency that the text refuses to give us. Now pause for a second. I want you to go to the comments right now. Do not close the video, just scroll down. I want to know if you were ever taught the story of Micaiah and the lying spirit in your standard curricula or sermon cycles, or was it skipped? Skipped if you never heard it, or read it if you found it on your own. I am willing to bet 90% of you found it on your own, because many traditions do not like to shine a light on the cracks in the foundation. They want you to see the tablet of truth, not the throne of deception. And that is why we are here. To read the whole book, not just the highlighted parts. Let us keep going. We are only halfway through, and the contradictions get more personal. Let us talk about the integrity of the family. The seventh commandment. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Implicit in this is the 10th commandment. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. The sanctity of marriage is paramount. We are told that marriage is a covenant before God. But look at the life of David. David the king violates this. He takes Bathsheba. He arranges for the death of her husband Uriah. It is a horrific abuse of power. The prophet Nathan comes to confront him. And in that confrontation, God speaks through the prophet to remind David of all the blessings he had given him. Listen closely to the list of gifts in 2 Samuel chapter 12. Verse 8. God says, "I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your arms." God is speaking. He is saying that when Saul died, God took the wives of Saul and transferred them to David like property. polygamy aside, which is already a tension with later Christian values, the text explicitly says God gave another man's wives to David. If marriage is a covenant, how can the deity treat the women as assets to be liquidated and reassigned? This implies that the commandment against adultery is really a commandment against theft. It is about property rights. You cannot take another man's wife because she belongs to him. But if the owner dies or is deposed, the great proprietor in the sky can reassign the property to the new favorite. This strips the moral weight from the commandment and reveals it as a civil regulation. Spinoza would argue that we are seeing the social structures of the Iron Age projected onto the cosmos. In the ancient world, kings inherited the harems of their predecessors. It was a sign of legitimacy. It was how you proved you were the new alpha. So the scribes wrote that God gave Saul's wives to David to prove David was the legitimate king. They sacrificed the moral consistency of the deity to establish the political legitimacy of the dynasty. It is political propaganda disguised as theology. And when you see it as propaganda, the shock fades and is replaced by understanding. Of course they wrote it that way. They were men writing for men in a world where women were often treated as currency. But do not tell me that this aligns with the eternal moral law written on the heart. It aligns with the law of conquest. It aligns with the law of the jungle. Spinoza looked at this and saw the human hand writing the divine decree. He saw that the moral law was flexible whenever the king needed a new wife or a new legitimacy. This does not mean marriage isn't sacred to you. It means the text uses marriage as a political poker chip. We have to address the most uncomfortable paradox regarding the nature of God himself. The first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. Monotheism. There is only one God, and yet the text is haunted by the presence of others. The commandment itself is an admission. It does not say there are no other gods. It says, do not have them before me. It is a demand for loyalty, not a statement of ontology. And then we have the recurring attribute. I am a jealous God. Jealousy is an emotion. It is a specific emotion born of insecurity and the fear of losing something to a rival. Spinoza applies his rigorous logic here. If God is the infinite substance of the universe, if God is everything that is, how can he be jealous? Who is the rival? Nothing exists outside of God. For God to be jealous implies that God perceives a threat. It implies that the other gods are real enough to be competitors. You do not get jealous of a fictional character your spouse mentions. You get jealous of a real person. When the biblical God speaks about jealousy, he is admitting that in the minds of the authors, those other gods were real options. They were competitors in the marketplace of worship. The text slips again and again. Psalm 82. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. The Elohim, the plural gods. He is the head honcho, but he is part of a pantheon. Spinoza points out that calling God jealous creates a God subject to passions, a God who changes, a God who suffers. A being that suffers is not perfect. A being that is insecure is not omnipotent. So when the commandment says no other gods, but the character says, I am jealous of the other gods, we are seeing the evolution of religion frozen in ink. We are seeing a tribal deity fighting for market share, slowly being inflated into a universal creator, but keeping his old bad habits. It is like seeing a CEO who still acts like a street fighter. The behavior does not match the position. You felt this when you read the Old Testament. You felt the pettiness. You felt the fragility of this God's ego, and you were told to fear it. But Spinoza teaches us that fear is the tool of control. Understanding is the tool of freedom. When you understand that the jealousy is a human projection, the fear evaporates. You realize that the commandment, have no other gods, is really the priests saying, do not send your tithes to the temple down the street. Send them here. It is economic protectionism. It is brand loyalty. It is human. And that is fine. It is understandable history. But it is not infinite perfection. We are approaching the heavy ones now, the ones that cost lives. Let us look at the Sabbath. Remember the fourth commandment. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. The penalty for breaking this was death. A man was stoned to death for gathering sticks on the Sabbath in Numbers 15. Stoned to death for gathering sticks. The standard is absolute zero tolerance. And then we go to Jericho, the book of Joshua chapter 6. The first great conquest. The strategy is divine. March around the city once for 6 days, and on the seventh day march around the city 7 times, and blow the trumpets and shout. Do the math. If you march for 7 consecutive days, one of those days must be the Sabbath. It is mathematically impossible for it not to be. So we have a direct command from God to conduct a military siege, which involves marching, carrying the ark, blowing trumpets, and shouting on the Sabbath. Why was the man gathering sticks executed while the army marching on Jericho was blessed? Because the stick gatherer was acting for himself, but the army was acting for the state's expansion. Once again, the moral absolute is relative to the political goal. If the work is holy war, then the Sabbath does not apply. This is the logic that has allowed religious violence to bypass religious morality for 3,000 years. If you label the violence as God's will, the rules against violence and the rules about holiness are suspended. Spinoza saw this danger clearly. He saw that when religion is coupled with the state will use religion to justify breaking its own laws. The holy day is holy until we need to conquer a city. Then it is just another work day. The hypocrisy is hard to defend. It relies on you not doing the math. It relies on you being so caught up in the story of the walls falling down that you forget the law that was trampled and let them fall. Spinoza asks, is the Sabbath a universal law of nature, or is it a civil ordinance? If it were a law of nature like gravity, it could not be suspended. But because it is suspended for war, we know it is a human law, and human laws are always subject to the whims of human rulers. This is crucial for understanding why religious states often become the most lawless states when it comes to their own dogmas. The dogma is for the citizen, not for the army. And now we arrive at the final and most devastating contradiction, the one that breaks the heart as much as the mind, the sixth commandment, thou shalt not murder. There is no asterisk in the commandment. It does not say, thou shalt not murder unless they are Canaanites. It says, do not murder. And yet, the command to commit total destruction is woven into the very narrative of the conquest. 1 Samuel chapter 15. This is the command given to King Saul regarding the Amalekites. Listen to the words, do not euphemize them. Go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. The text explicitly lists child and infant as targets. The God who wrote, thou shalt not kill on a tablet is quoted here ordering the slaughter of the innocent. There is no context that makes this moral. There is no apologetic that can sanitize the instruction to target an infant because of the crimes of their ancestors. If a human leader commanded this, we would call him a war criminal. We would call him a tyrant. Why do we suspend that judgment when the command is attributed to God? This is where Spinoza's method becomes a rescue mission for your sanity. Spinoza argues that we must interpret the Scripture through the Scripture. We see the commandment, do not murder. We see the command, kill the infant. They cannot both be the nature of the divine. One is the moral intuition of a developing humanity, realizing that life is sacred. The other is the tribal hatred of a people terrified of their enemies, projecting their desire for total security onto their God. The author of Samuel hated the Amalekites. He hated them with a generational fury. And so he wrote a God who hated them too. He wrote a God who commanded what the author desired. This is the ultimate embarrassment, that we have held up a book as a guide to love and morality that contains explicit descriptions of crimes against humanity, presented as divine will. When you read these passages and felt a sickness in your gut, That was not a lack of faith. That was your humanity working. That was your moral compass functioning exactly as it should. The tragedy is that for centuries people were told to suppress that sickness. They were told that obedience required suspending their own moral intuition. They were told that to be good, they had to agree that slaughter was good if God ordered it. Spinoza refused. He refused to believe that God was a contradictory warlord who broke his own laws. He chose to believe that the text was flawed rather than believe that God was cruel. And this same pattern shows up again in Judges with Jephthah. Jephthah makes a vow to sacrifice the first thing that comes out of his house if God gives him victory. His daughter comes out. And the text says he did to her as he had vowed. He carries out a human sacrifice to Yahweh. And the text does not condemn him. It treats it as a tragic but valid fulfillment of a vow. The God who says do not murder accepts a human life as payment for a military victory. This reads like the logic of a Bronze Age warlord, not a universal moral law. Spinoza compels us to ask, who is actually speaking here? Is it the infinite intelligence that designed the laws of physics? Or is it a superstitious general who thinks God needs a transaction of blood to grant victory? The answer is obvious. It is hard to believe we were trained to overlook it. The God of the philosophers, the God of nature, the God of Spinoza does not need transactions. He does not need the death of children. The God of the text, however, seems to crave it whenever the plot demands it. This distinction is vital. It is the difference between worshiping a book and worshiping the truth. The book contains the history of men trying to find God and often finding only their own shadows. The truth is the light that allows you to see the shadow for what it is. Why does this matter? Why go through this list? Is it just to tear down? Is it just to make you feel empty? No, it is to build something real. You are watching this because you have left the enclosure of dogma, but you still feel the shadow of the fence. You still wonder if you missed something. You wonder if there is a secret explanation that makes it all make sense. The answer is no. The contradictions are real. The text is broken because it is human. And that is okay. It is actually better than okay. It is liberating. When you realize that the God who broke the commandments is a literary character constructed by ancient people struggling to understand their world, you are free from the burden of defending the indefensible. You are free to take the wisdom where you find it, and reject the horror where you see it. You become the judge. Spinoza says that we must use our own reason, our own natural light to discern truth. You do not need a priest to tell you that targeting infants is wrong. You know it. You do not need a theologian to explain why lying is wrong. You know it. Your reason is the true word of God, not the ink on the page. Spinoza paid a high price for this. He died young. He died poor. He died breathing in glass dust from the lenses he ground to make a living. But he died free. He died without fear of a jealous tyrant. He died knowing that the substance of the universe was not a petty king breaking his own laws, but an infinite, eternal necessity that flows through all things, including him, including you. You have that same freedom. You have the right to look at the text and say, this is inconsistent. You have the right to say, this is hard to defend. And in doing so, you are not stepping away from truth. You are stepping toward it. Spinoza understood that the Bible was a document of its time. He was the father of biblical criticism not because he hated the Bible, but because he wanted to save the concept of God from the contradictions of the text. He saw that if you force the Bible to be perfect, you turn God into a liar. But if you allow the Bible to be human, you allow God to remain perfect. You allow God to be the structure of the universe, the mathematical certainty, the laws of nature that never break. A law of nature cannot be broken. Gravity does not take a day off. Thermodynamics does not cheat. If God is the structure of reality, then God cannot break commandments. The fact that the biblical character does break them is the ultimate proof that the character is not the reality. The character is a mask worn by different authors with different agendas over 1,000 years. Sometimes the mask smiles and says, love your neighbor. Sometimes the mask grimaces and says, destroy the Amalekites. Your job is to recognize that the mask is not the face. The face is hidden in the laws of nature, in the intuition of your own mind, in the logic that Spinoza championed. I want you to think about the freedom that comes with this realization. You no longer have to apologize for God. You no longer have to perform mental gymnastics to explain why the Good Shepherd ordered a genocide. You can simply say that part was written by a man who didn't know better. You can step out of the cognitive dissonance and into the clarity of reason. Spinoza called this the intellectual love of God. It is a love based on understanding, not fear. It is a love based on seeing things as they really are, not as you were told they should be. It is a love that does not require you to check your brain at the door. This intellectual love is sturdy. It does not break when you find a contradiction in a book, because it was never based on the book in the first place. It was based on the reality of the world around you. It was based on the undeniable laws of cause and effect. It was based on the intuition that cruelty is weak and understanding is strong. When you embrace this, you are no longer a child waiting for instruction. You are an adult participating in the divine nature. You are using the mind that was given to you. And that is the highest form of worship there is. Using the mind to filter the myth. Using the heart to reject the hate. Using the soul to find the silence behind the noise. Now I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to think about the one question that always nagged you. The one contradiction you saw that no one would answer. It might be one of these 7, or it might be something else. Maybe it was the bear killing the children who mocked Elisha. Maybe it was the inconsistent genealogies.